let's get it to the time. With me and the whole crew, went down to Myrtle Beach for bike week. So you know how I do, just follow the story. So one day, I'm chilling with this girl Becky, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? I'm chilling at her crib, you know what I mean? I'm laid back, you know, sit back on the couch, you know what I mean? Watching TV, you know what I mean? Watching Raising Canaan, you know what I mean? Power and all that. You know, Becky, you know, was a white girl, you know what I mean? Blonde hair, fat ass, you know what I mean? You know, like, the best way to describe her, you know what I mean? She was, you know, she looked like, from the neck up, she looked like Tiffany Stratton, Jessica Simpson, you know what I mean? You know, basically a white girl, blonde hair. But from the neck down, you know, she had the body of a black woman, you know what I mean? Small waist, fat ass, you know what I mean? Hips, thick thighs, you know what I mean? Yeah, her body was real, you know what I mean? You know, both her parents, you know what I mean? You know, was rich white people, you know what I mean? They was in the entertainment business. And, you know, Becky, you know, she, was raised by a black babysitter, you know what I mean? A black woman from Oak Cliff, you know, babysit her. So that's why, you know, she loved hip-hop music and she knew how to cook, you know, soul food just like a black woman with seasoning and flavor, you know what I mean? And of course she loved hip-hop music, you know what I mean? So, that's just the rundown on Becky, right? So I'm chilling in the crib, you know what I mean? That Becky spot. You know what I mean? Because, you know, I met her at Farrago's Cigar Lounge, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? The first time I seen her, I'm just like, damn, you know what I mean? It's a pretty-ass white girl, long blonde hair, pretty face, and a fat ass, you know? You know, that shit was crazy. So I'm chilling, you know what I mean, in the crib. Becky's walking around, you know, booty shorts on, fat ass, you know what I mean, white chick. She's cooking this shit while I'm watching Raising Canaan. So, the whole time Becky's walking around back and forth, she's on the Bluetooth. She on the phone, because she's a talent, you know, manager. You know what I mean? She's a talent manager, you know. Some of her clients is ASAP Rocky, Glorilla, you know what I mean? You know, people like that, you know what I mean? Megan Thee Stallion, you know. List goes on, you know. So she's back and forth, you know what I mean? Talking with ASAP Rocky, she's back and forth, you know. So eventually she gets on the phone. She's like, yo, she said that, you know, ASAP, you know what I mean, and Glorilla, and everybody's going down to Myrtle Beach for bike week, and that this might be the last, you know, bike week until Trump get out of office because, you know, ever since Trump got in office, you know, they've been sending ICE up there to fuck with the Spanish, you know what I mean, bikers and, you know, the police been, you know, really fucking with the black bikers and like, you know, it ain't been fun like it was before, you know. So they saying that they're gonna protest that, you know, they're gonna like have fun this year at Bike Week of the next year. They know nobody's really gonna go. They're just gonna wait till Trump get out of office. Trump probably had like maybe 3 to 2 more years left. So she's like, everybody's going to Bike Week. She just got off the phone with ASAP, so she was like, you know, asking me, do I want to go down to Bike Week? So I'm like, you know, sounds cool, sounds fun and shit, right? So now my phone rings, it's 88. You know, 88 and, you know, Becky knew each other, you know, because Becky used to, like I said, go to Farrago's Cigar Lounge. So I said, yo, this 88 calling, and she was like, what? She was like, yo, that's my bitch right there, you know? Because Becky, like I said, even though she was white, she talked, act black, you know what I mean? It was funny how 1 minute, when Becky's on the phone with one of her clients or conduct the business, she sounds straight up like a white woman. Then when she get around us, she sound like any other black girl from Dallas, from the hood. So I answer the phone, you know, I got 88 on speaker, I'm like, what up? So 88 all high, like, yo, what's going on? I'm like, yo, chilling. You know what I mean? I'm on, you know, over at Becky's spot. So that's what 88 said, what? He was like, BBL Becky, cause that's, you know, that's the nickname. 88 gave Becky, you know what I mean, because, like I said, Becky was a white girl with a fat ass, so 88 called her BBL Becky, even though, Becky butt was real. So that's what she was in. So that's when Becky said, "What up, bitch?" like that. And then that's when 88 said, "Well," and then they started, talking back and forth on speaker. So I'm like, "What's good?" She was like, "Yo," 88 was like, "She just got off the phone with her manager, and that Big Boogie and Boosie invited her down to Myrtle Beach. For like an appearance at a club, because Boosie was throwing some type of party down there. He wanted 88 to come. He wanted all the females to come to this, party that he's going to be having down at Myrtle Beach, and how everybody's going down to Myrtle Beach because this might be the last one, same shit. So I'm like, yo, we were just talking about that, because, Becky, she just booked, ASAP and Glorilla, down there, because, that's they manager. She was like, what? So I was like, yo, let's just round up the crew, and we all just go down to Myrtle Beach. Fuck it, we all just, get the bikes, get the crew together. Whoever want to ride on the bike, to get on the back of the bikes. Whoever want to ride in the cars, get in the cars. Fuck it, we just take the whole crew down there. So that's when 88 was like, cool, so that way she ain't really got to go down there by herself. So fuck it, so I send out the mass text, the Platinum Flame, Sexy Trapper, the whole crew, I hit up Slap Jill so that way we can have some legal security, I hit up my nigga Mac Truck on the West Coast, He said that, he was going down there, him and his motorcycle club called the Certified Gorillas. So fuck it. So now, everybody's getting hyped to go down to Myrtle Beach for Bike Week. So boom. So probably about, 3 weeks maybe went by. So now it's time to go down to Myrtle Beach. So, I got them, so we all got motorcycles. So whoever wanted to get in, we had like two motherfucking soccer mom vans, so whoever wanted to get in the van could ride in the van. Whoever wanted to ride on the back of the bike, far as the females, you get on the back of the bike. So 88's on the back of Platinum, the bike. Sexy Trapper's on the back of Flame bike. And Becky's on the back of my bike. Becky got on these leather chap pants, with like this black thong, so when she gets on the back, it looks crazy. You got this big booty white bitch with blonde hair on the back of my bike. I got on black, black pants, black leather vest, no shirt, muscled up, I've been hitting the gym, six-pack popping, motorcycle boots, killing them, tattoos, all that. So boom, we riding out, so we riding down the highway. So we riding, we on our way to Myrtle Beach, riding down. As we riding, we seen, different bike crews heading the same way, we seen the Redliners, we seen the Rough Riders, we seen the Southside Soldiers, whole, bunch of motorcycle crews and, people just riding down, all kinds of different motorcycle Kawasaki's, Yamahas, fucking, Harleys, dirt bikes, all that shit. So, boom. So now we down in Myrtle Beach. We riding through, we seeing all the different cars, motorcycles, music blasting every direction, Of course, all the bad bitches walking around, banging bodies and shit, So now we get to Myrtle Beach, so now, Becky's like, yo, she gotta go make sure that, Glorilla and ASAP checked into their hotel rooms and shit. And then she's gonna also check, to make sure our room, cause me and Becky had a room together, make sure our room is good. So I'm like, cool. So then 88 said that she gonna go, Sexy Trap and the other females, like, 88's friends that was with her and shit, they all gonna go to to the hotel room, I guess freshen up, chillin', So me and the crew, we like, fuck it, we wanted to walk the strip a little bit, 'cause we just got there, you know what I mean? So I hit a Mac truck. I'm like, yo, so Mac truck answers the phone. I'm like, yo, Mac, where you at? And he was like, that he down there and shit. So he told us what, part of, Myrtle Beach he was at. So me and the crew, me and the boys, we go. We meet up with Mac truck, Mac truck and the certified gorillas. You know what I mean? So, with Mac's truck, pals and hugs and shit. So now, this is Mac Truck's first time meeting Platinum and Flame. So, 'cause he didn't get to meet him, 'cause when he came down, when he was supposed to go and meet at Bimp's party, we both got locked up. So this is his first time meeting Platinum and Flame. So, pal hug Platinum and Flame. He was like, yo, good to meet y'all niggas, He was like, I didn't get to see y'all. 'Cause, we got caught up in this shit. We laughed about it. He introduced us to the Certified Gorillas, his motorcycle club. So I'm like, yo, where your bikes at? He said that they park their bikes, at, over there. This, this guy that had a house down there. He said they could park their bikes up over there so that way you ain't got to worry about your bike getting towed, getting tickets. So he was like, just pay him a little bit or something, It's cool. So we take our bikes over to cause the person lived real close. You know what I mean? The house was like right there, so we take our bikes. Person had a big ass house, big yard, mad motorcycles was there, you know what I mean? So we just put our bikes there and shit. Boom, so that way we could walk the strip without worrying about our bikes and shit. Cool, so now we walk in the strip, like I said, what I mean? I'm looking good as a motherfucker, got a black leather vest on, no shirt, you know what I mean? Jeans on. You know what I mean? Tattoos, hair braided, looking handsome to the motherfucker, Mac truck, he buffed too, dark-skinned nigga, bald head. You know what I mean? Leather vest on. Wife beater, so me and him, we grabbing all the ladies' attention and shit. So, as me and Mac, talking and shit, and the crews, his crew and my crew, what I mean, following us, we in the front, me and Mac, we walking. This bad Spanish bitch, came over. She was sipping some liquor out of a big, like, long wine glass, like them, them long wine glasses like they sell, like, down in Cancun with the straw. She's sipping that. So she, she got like a motorcycle vest on, sports bra, just nice, pretty titties, pushed up, small waist, fat ass, thick thighs, long hair, bad Spanish Mexican bitch. Cause, I knew she was Mexican because she had the big Mexican flag tatted on her neck. So, she's like, hey, she was like, y'all guys look good, da-da-da-da-da. Can I get a picture with y'all? So, like, I was like, only if I can get a picture with my phone, too. So, she was like, sure. So, you know what I mean? So, like I said, I already got the vest, with no shirt, six-pack showing. So I stand on one side. Mac truck still on the other side, her friend, which was another pretty, like, bad Spanish bitch, took the picture, then took my phone and Mac truck's phone, and took pictures, so, she's in the middle, what I mean? We standing side by side with her, what I mean? She got, like, her arms, like, holding both our waist, and we, like, standing on side by side, so she's in the middle, what I mean? It got a big-ass smile, we just standing there, flexing, muscles and shit, so, we took pictures, so we were like, hey, she was like, it was down here from Myrtle Beach Bike Week. So kind of flirted, but, we left it at that. So I also had my cousin Buddha. My cousin Buddha who always, do, like, the videography, with the cameras and shit. My cousin Buddha down there, he's filming me. You know what I mean? He shoots for Hood Affairs and shit, Hood Affairs DVD, so I got Buddha on deck to capture, all the moments. So Buddha's filming me. So he filming me, So, after we take the pictures and shit. So now, I'm like, so Buddha's like, yo, let's see if we can do what that nigga King 6'8" the Great be doing. Like, let's see if we can catch bitches' attention, as you walk down. Cause I'm like, cool, so, I step to the side. So I stand on one side, looking down on my phone, act like I ain't paying attention to nobody. My cousin Buddha stands at a distance, he filming me. And you see different girls, walking past, looking back. So, a few girls walk up to me, ask me for my number, you know what I mean? I give them my number on my Instagram. Depending on how they look, if they look good, I give them my number. If they look alright, give them the Instagram. And then, just different women coming up to me, like, yo, I just want to let you know, you look real good, you know what I mean? Your body's banging, you know what I mean? You are definitely blessed by God, all kind of shit. Women kicking their game at me. So, we having fun with that shit, grabbing women's attention and shit. So as we walking and shit, walking through, you know what I mean? We hear like vroom vroom, like all this, noise like coming from dirt bikes. And we see a group of niggas on dirt bikes, four-wheelers. As the niggas got closer, I noticed it was Meek Mill, you know what I mean? Meek Mill and the Dream Chasers, and his Dream Chasers crew. So Meek Mill, you know what I mean? He's popping wheelies on the dirt bike and coming up the strip. So everybody's like, oh shit, that's Meek Mill. So, everybody got their phones out, filming Meek Mills and his crew on dirt bikes and shit. Of course, my cousin Buddha catching the footage. So boom, so now we back, he's back filming me, catching girls' attention. We seen it was like a crowd of people over taking pictures, be like, who that? And as we got closer, we like, oh shit, that's Sexy Red and Suki Hana. They both was over there taking pictures, so I'm like, fuck it, let me see if I can get a picture. So at first I'm walking over, people getting pictures. So her security guard, some tall nigga with a bulletproof vest on, was telling people, I ain't no more pictures, So I'm like, yo, Sexy Red, Suki, can I get a picture? And he was like, nah, play it, that's it. And then when Suki and Sexy Red saw me, they was like, nah, he good, let him, they're like, he definitely can get a picture. So that's what I stepped through and shit. So, I get in the middle, Sexy Red's on one side, Suki on the other. Suki, she doing like, the duck face with the lips, Sexy Red, you know what I mean? She acting like she blowing the kids, they both on each side of me, I'm standing in the middle, you know what I mean? Looking like a guard, you know what I mean? Body, six-pack like pow, So I'm taking pictures and shit. So, I thanked them and shit, you know what I mean? Shook hands, with Suki Hana and Sexy Red, so, cool. So Sexy Red and Suki Hana was like, make sure you tag us in the picture, I'm like, sure, I'm like, no doubt. So Sexy Red and Suki Hana, they leave, they move, they walk off with their security and they entourage. Cool, so now, I'm about to post a picture in my stories on Instagram. Tag Suki Hana, tag, Sexy Red, and I, let them know, yo, let them know Myrtle Beach, is lit. Boom, I posted it. Shit going up, shit getting hits, pictures and shit. So as we walking, bagging more numbers and shit, I seen the porn star, Keiki the porn star with the long ass tongue. I'm like, oh shit, I gotta get a picture with Keiki, Keiki. So, I go up to Keiki, I ask her, can I get a picture? Cool. So, I put my arm around her. She grabbed my dick and this sticks her long tongue out. So, in the picture, you just see Keiki the porn star with sticking out her long tongue like a snake holding my dick, and I'm just, standing there with a big ass smile and shit. I posted that picture. That bitch is going crazy, viral going, letting them know Myrtle Beach is lit. Boom. So we chilling, just enjoying the strip, me, Platinum Flame, Slap Joe, my nigga Mac Truck, and his niggas on the West Coast. We just enjoying, bagging numbers, having fun, walking through Myrtle Beach. I get a text from Becky. So Becky, texted me the picture with Keiki holding my dick. It was like, wow, the text said, wow, this is what we doing. I bought you done. And I'm like, yo, that's porn star Keiki, relax. And she was like, and that's what she texted me back, like, I know who it is, but like, she's like, oh, I bought you done. So, I had to text, Becky to like, calm her down, let her know it's all, fun and shit. Cool. So, we chilling. It was this bad bitch that Flame saw, pretty bitch, fat ass, banging body that was standing out there. So Flame like, yo, I'm gonna go holler at mommy over here. So we like, cool. So, Flame goes over. He's taking game to the chick. Platinum, he's sipping, low song, Mac Truck sipping and low song. We just stand on the strip hollering at different women, my nigga Buddha, catching all the foliage. Slat Joe, of course, is on point, he's security for us, So, Flame's kicking game to the girl and shit. So Flame's like, yo, what's good? Like, you're looking good, whatever. He was like, yo, basically like trying to say like, yo, what's good? Like, we could slide off now, man. Like, you could leave with us. He was like letting her know like you fine as a motherfucker. So the girl is like howling back at Flame, give it rhythm. She's like, yeah, I'm with all that, we could leave right now. But she said it's gonna cost you, Big Daddy. So Flame stood back. He stood back, he like, cost me. And she like, yeah, then she pointed to some nigga. Some big dark-skinned nigga with gold teeth and dreads and shit. And, I guess that was her pimp. And then Flame was like, he's like, girl, you crazy? He was like, all these bitches out here. He's like, you think I'm trying to pay for some pussy? He's like, fuck out of here. So he walk off, the nigga Platinum laughing at the nigga Flame, laughing. So, we joked about that and shit, So cool, so we like, yo, man, we gonna come back. We all was like, yo, we gonna go to the hotel rooms, freshen up, probably get like a quick nap, and then come back at night, because number 88 got a booking at Boopsy's party. Remember, Boopsy's having a party, and Mac Truck was like, oh, yeah. He was like, I was hearing something about that. I'm like, yeah, so I told Mac Truck, yo, we gonna meet back up at a certain time at night, when the sun go down, and we gonna go over, to where Boopsy's having his little event, it's gonna be mad bitches there, how Boopsy get down. So Max Truck was like, alright, cool, so we all agreed to come out like around like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, So cool, so now I head back to the hotel, because Becky had a hotel, for us. Platinum Flame had hotel, Sexy Trapper, 88, and all of them done went wherever they went. I don't know where they was at, but I'm pretty sure they was enjoying themselves and shit. They just had their room, so I get to the hotel room, Becky's there and shit. She was kind of mad about the picture, but, it was nothing. So, of course, now, me and Becky get it in, boom, boom. Fucking in the hotel room, boom, boom, boom. I'm pulling her blonde hair from the back, smacking that, fat white ass, putting my handprints all on it. Pounding that pussy out, boom, boom, boom. Fuck, right? So now we laying in bed. She gets a call, She was like, yo, she gotta go, cause, Glorilla, the ASAP, is now in the facility of Myrtle Beach Bike Week, so she gotta make sure they're good. So I already knew she was gonna be tied up, so in the back of my head, I'm like, good. So she was like, yo, you're gonna be here when I get back. I'm like, yeah, even though I know I'm going out, I'm going back out, because we gotta go to the Bootsy party. So she heads out, to go do, her thing for her clients and shit. So, boom, I hop in the shower, text Platinum Flame like, yo, whatever, let's go do this, do that. We gotta meet over Mac Truck. Text Mac Truck, he said, yeah, you're gonna meet us. Cool. So, we, shower up, get dressed, we head back out, what I'm saying? We head back out, so now, still celebrities coming through, me and nigger. We seen like some commotion on the side. The nigga Rick Ross, his crew was out there. People taking pictures with Rick Ross. He got, his Harleys out there. He got more. He got a group of niggas with him. They got like Harleys and shit, in different colors, big wheels and shit. Shout out to Rick Ross. He out there doing his thing. So we walking. My cousin was like, yo, ain't that Jim? He was like, ain't that Capo? I'm like, oh shit, so I know Capo personally. I'm like, yo, Capo, and then Capo, he's like, oh shit, you're like, Tony, what up, town hog, my nigga Dice Peso, what up, Dice Peso, he down with Jim Jones, King Streets, and our first time meeting King Streets, even though he from Queens, he from Far Rock. I'm like, yo, what's up with y'all niggas? We talking, he's like, yeah, we doing this, we doing that. I'm like, yo, y'all going to the Bootsy party? He was like, yeah. He was like, that's later on at night, He said they're gonna slide over there like around probably like 10:30, 11. But he said right now, the nigga Noriega, the nigga Nori, the DJ, EFN or whatever, they having like some shit for Drink Champs, where they gonna be interviewing not only Jim Jones and his crew, but they're gonna be interviewing Future. He was like, you can roll with us if you want. So, I asked Platinum and Flame, and a few of the other crew didn't want to go. Some of the crew didn't want to go, but Platinum and Flame, Slap Joe was down, so we like, fuck it. And some of my other niggas was down, so we like, fuck it. So now we rolling with Jim. So now we get to this drink champs event. So it's like a drink champs event with Noriega. He's doing drink champs from Myrtle Beach, and he's interviewing Future. He's interviewing Future and Jim Jones. So now we down at drink champs event. You know what I mean? They was calling it Wet Willies or whatever. Special edition. Wet Willie special edition of Drink Tramps with, Nori, DJ EFN or whatever. So Jim Jones is there. He's interviewing Jim Jones and Future. He's interviewing both of them at the same time, You know how Nori is, make some noise, everybody clapping and, they taking shots and drinking and, talking about the industry and, Jim Jones telling stories, different stories of what he'd been through, and Diplomat Future telling stories of what he'd been through in the industry. Everybody sitting around listening. So Platinum, he's flirting with this girl and shit. You know what I mean? Everybody, in the atmosphere drinking. I don't drink, so everybody's feeling nice. So, there was this girl there that was drinking. Platinum was drinking. They feeling each other. So, Platinum's, talking to this girl. Cute bitch, you know what I mean? Literally, had an ass on that shit. So they kicking it. Platinum like, yo, he said, I'm about to slide off in like the bathroom and, knock Shorty down because Shorty was with it. I'm like, alright, cool. So Platinum goes in there. Platinum's fucking the bitch. Cute bitch, he fucking her from the back, in the bathroom stall, he fucking. And nobody noticed because everybody's, not only focused on the interview, but like I said, how Nori is, he always makes some noise. So with all the clapping and the people yelling and all that, they don't know that, a bitch is in the bathroom getting fucked, in the stall and shit unless you was in there. And ain't nobody gonna say nothing because it's Myrtle Beach Bike Week. It's kind of like Cancun or like Vegas. What happened in Vegas, so boom. So Platinum fucks the bitch, boom. So they come back out and shit, The girl's giggling, Platinum smiling. So the girl's like, yo, I'm about to slide off. She was like, let me get your number. So Platinum gives her his number. He takes her number. Cool. So when the girl, walks off, before the bitch even walks out the building with her homegirls, I see him blocking the number. I'm like, yo. You blocking her number already? He was like, yeah, he basically was like, he already got the pussy. He was like, plus, he said, I got a baby on the way. I can't have that bitch calling me and shit. So I bust out laughing. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, yo, Platt, you a crazy nigga. So cool. So now we chilling. So Jim and I'm like, yo, man. He said, we about to head out to the Bootsy shit, but he said he had to make a stop, but he said he'd meet us there. Cool. So, you know what I mean? So me, Platinum Flame, with the rest of the crew, you know what I mean? We walk around the strip, bagging more numbers, having fun and shit. We see, so one of my niggas like, yo, they go Megan. So I'm like, it was Megan Thee Stallion. She was on the back of a bike, you know what I mean? So Megan Thee Stallion's on the back of a bike. Some nigga, he's on the bike, riding the motorcycle. Megan Thee Stallion's on the back, you know what I mean? Long, thick thighs and shit. So everybody going crazy like, oh shit, that's Megan Thee Stallion on the back of the bike. So everybody's taking pictures. And it's like a crew of them, you know what I mean, coming down on the bike. So we're like, alright, cool, Megan Thee Stallion, no doubt. So now, we're still walking the strip. So now it's like probably like 10:30. We like, yo, let's head over to where the Bootsy shit gonna be at. So now we head over to where the Bootsy event is. Long ass line, yo. The line was so motherfucking long, yo. That shit was crazy. I'm like, yo, there's no way we waiting on this line to get in there to see Bootsy. So I'm like, fuck. So 88, Sexy Trapper, and her homegirls and shit. They come through, you know what I mean? 88 Sexy Trapper, 88's homegirl named New York, some short chick from New York, but she been living in Dallas for like mad years. And her other homegirl, Brenda or Barbara, I forgot her name. But So 88 and her homegirls come through, and and her manager. So I'm like, yo, 88, get us in there. So 88 goes to the thing, to the door. She's like, yo, I'm here, cause the Boosie da-da-da-la, show the proof or whatever. So they like, alright, cool. So it was like, that 88, her manager, and her girls he get in. And she was like, my niggas over there, I don't want them to get in. So the security was like, yo, as long as they fix me up, as long as they fix me up, that means like, slide on some money. So 88 comes and say, yo, the dude said, here, let y'all in. Y'all can skip the line or whatever, but y'all gotta pay, you know what I mean? So we like, fuck. So I just said, fuck it. So I took maybe like $300-400, $100 bills, and slid it, to 88. She gives it to the security guard. It was this light-skinned security guard. Nigga was tall, waist, muscular built, had a black t-shirt that said security on it, tattoos. 88 was feeling them and shit, but Sexy Trapper was feeling them too. So Sexy Trapper said, nah, let me, she was like, let me, get at this one, you know what I mean? Cause, so Sexy Trapper flirting with a nigga, and 88 flirting, but 88 had to go backstage to get with Big Boogie and Bootsy and all of them. So she couldn't really get at the nigga, so Sexy Trapper like, nah, I'ma stay here. So that's when 88, her homegirl, New York, and the other homegirls, they go inside the club to go where Bootsy at and Big Boogie at. So Sexy Trapper's at the door flit with the nigga, we slide homie the money. So he like, cool. So he like, yeah, he was like, so he told his other homies that was doing security, he was like, yo, these niggas, they good, He was like, yo, all y'all gotta do is get patted down and, alright, cool. So we get patted down and shit. Everybody, so Platinum gets patted down. Platinum has a weed on him. He said, yeah, you can't take the weed inside. So he was like, so Platinum like, fuck. So so the security guard takes the weed and put it in the shoebox, and there was like other, packs of weed in there. Like he's taking everybody weed and putting it in this shoebox and tucking it under like this desk or whatever that, where the security's at. So I'm like, alright, cool. So, Sexy Trapper's still at the door. She, flirting with me, the light-skinned, nigga, cause, she said she like him red, like, 88. So she was just feeling this security guard nigga. So Sexy Trapper's still with the security guard nigga. She's standing there, flirting with him while he working back and forth. So he takes platinum weed, put it with the rest of the weed. So we like, fuck it. So me and the crew, we walk in. Wall-to-wall people, wall-to-wall people. Not only is so many people inside the spot, like I said, the line is wrapped around the corner like 3-4 times, like a pair of Air Jordans about to drop, or like the Popeyes chicken sandwich when it came out. Like that's how long that line was out there, and there's so many people inside packed, but there's mad women in there. So we in there, we chilling. So of course we find us a spot, what I mean? Me and the crew, so we chilling. So now Boosie about to start the show. So Boosie, he's on stage, they before Boosie come out, they playing all the classic strip songs, strip club songs, that they like in the South. So they just having fun. You know what I mean? So Boosie come out, people going crazy, So Big Boosie, he's like, yo, before we get started, he said, I gotta bring out a nigga that I looked up to, you know what I mean? Motherfucker, I was watching since I was a little nigga. He was like, everybody give it up for motherfucking Uncle Luke. So everybody going crazy, Uncle Luke comes out, you know what I mean? So, they play some of Uncle Luke songs like Pop That Coochie and, you know what I mean? I Wanna Rock Doodle Brown and, all the classic shit. So Uncle Luke, he performed that, his girls on stage twerking fat asses and shit, because they already had like mad bitches on stage. You know what I mean? Half naked, topless, twerking, niggas going crazy. Bitches in the audience, showing their titties, you had bitches in the audience sitting on niggas' shoulders. You know what I mean? Topless, shaking their titties and shit. So it was like a zoo in there, you know what I mean? Bitches standing on tables, stripping. You know what I mean? Like it was crazy, girls in front of me, twerking in front of me, you know what I mean? Making the ass clap in front of me, flirting with me and shit. Like it was crazy. So Uncle Luke's on stage. So Boosie was like, yo. So he said to Uncle Luke, he was like, yo, I just want to give you flowers, you know what I mean? I fuck with you. You know what I mean? You a real nigga, you from the South, He said, you one of the reasons why I do what I do, give your Uncle Luke his flowers. And he said, yo, Boosie's like, yo, remember back in the day, Loop's peep show, he said, well, tonight, I want to welcome everybody to Boosie's freak show. So that's what everybody said, yeah, everybody going crazy, right? So he like, yo, let me bring out my nigga. So he brings out Moneybag Yo. So Moneybag Yo's performing his songs, bitches, twerking all over, in the crowd, on stage, going crazy, going crazy, going crazy. So Moneybag Yo come out. Then he brings out, Sexy Red, performs some of her songs. People going crazy, going crazy, going crazy. He brings out Big Boogie comes out. He performs, people going crazy, going crazy, going crazy. You know what I mean? Finesse 2 times, all that. So now, Boosie's like, yo, Boosie performs some more songs. He's like, yo, we about to start the contest, you know what I mean? He was like, yo, whoever could twerk that ass the best, you know what I mean? To my song, a Big Boogie song, he said, yo, fuck, $1,000 for showing your pussy. He was like, I got 3,000, 4,000, and then Big Boogie said, yo, he said, I got 2 on that, you know what I mean? So, Finesse 2 times was like, yeah, I got, something on that, because, he brought Finesse 2 times out. So, the pot, is like damn near 10 steps. So now it starts out with like 10 girls, on stage, you know what I mean? 88's up there, and they all about to have this twerk off. So the meantime, while that's going on, the fire marshal comes, you know what I mean? The fire marshal comes. So, they see the line, they're like, yo, what's going on, you know what I mean? So, the owner of the club was like, talking to the fire marshal. So he was like, well, let me see what's going on, because he's like, there's a lot of people, I gotta make sure it's not a fire hazard. So as they step in, because, Sexy Trapper was standing right there, still with the security guard flirting. The fire marshal said, yo, he said, it smells like weed in here. And so the owner of the club was like, ain't no weed in here, nobody smoking no weed. He was like, no, it just smells like it's unsmoked weed, like somebody's grown weed, so he's looking around, he's like, but they ain't think nothing of it. The fire marshal and the rest of the fire, men and the owner, they walk in. So, that's when, the security guard was looking nervous, but if they had looked under that desk, they would have seen a big, shoebox, of mad weed and shit that, he'd been taking from people all night, so Sexy Trapper's still sitting there with the security guard flirting. So the fire, marshal walks in, he's seen, like all this shit going on. You're like, what the fuck? So even the fire marshal and the owner stop and they watching the show. So they having a twerk off, boom. So it starts off with like 10 bitches, you know what I mean? With 88 shit and the girls twerking, so they have different rounds. And whoever got the less cheers had to get off the stage, so it started out with like 10 of them, so now it comes down to maybe 4 chicks. Boom. So they twerking off. 88 still, twerking. It was this other girl with an ass a little bit bigger than 88's. That was going a little further than 88. Like she had show titties and shit. 88 and showing titties and shit and getting naked. But this girl was willing to do any and everything. She get naked. So this girl was topless and twerking, ass and shit, fat ass just bouncing, boom, boom, boom. She had an ass like Cherokee the porn star, big fat ass twerking, but 88 still hanging in there. So now it comes down to these two, it's 88 and this girl. So 88, she goes again, 88 twerps and shit. People go crazy, 88's twerking and shit. On the knees, doing her shit, you know what I mean? Did a little flip, split, all that. So now it's the girl's turn, so now the girl gets all the way naked. This girl gets butt-ass naked. I'm talking about birthday suit naked, you know what I mean? No shoes, socks, nothing, butt-ass naked. So she clapping the ass, you hear the shit, clap it loud. She puts the water bottle between the crack of her ass, and she's twerking with the water bottle. In the crack of the ass, the water bottle ain't falling. She just twerking this butt, and her butt was real, because it's too soft and big. So she, then she takes the water bottle, takes the top off. She drinks some of the water, and then she starts squeezing the water, and her pussy kind of like a douche. She's squeezing the water, and her pussy like a douche. So then she lays on her back, spreads her legs wide, and then squirts the water up to the ceiling. Everybody went crazy. When I tell you the whole club went crazy, you could hear people cheering, kind of like the old school Arsenio Horse show. Everybody doing the root, like, like how they used to cheer in the 90s, people stomping their feet. Yo, and the shit just kept squirting up like a water fountain all the way to the ceiling. And Boosie, Boosie got his hand on his head, like, shot with his mouth open. You know what I mean? And then, Finesse two-time, he got the praying hands, you know what I mean? Hey, it's crazy. You just see the girl just lay back, with her tongue sticking out, with water just squirting out her pussy up in the air like a water faucet, like a shower hose. Like, it was crazy. So after that, of course the girl won the competition. So, so Boosie's like, yo, I got love, from you 88. He was like, I'm still gonna give you a little something. So he gave her maybe 3-4 stacks. But the girl got 20 stacks, and everybody gave, because not only she made money from them, but, people throwing money. So Boosie handed her a big stack of money, looked like a brick. Handed her stack of money. It was like, yo, he was like, you got it. So everybody cheering for the girl. The girl, is up there butt-ass naked. So now, as the music playing the shit, the music just cuts off, so everybody so Boosie, he tapping the mic, trying to get the sound. He like, yo, so he looked back at the DJ, so now, the sound man walks up, puts his arm around Boosie, he's whispering in his ear. So Boosie looked concerned. And then that's when, the fire marshal shut it down, and then it was like, oh shit, so that's when, the fire marshal, he decided to shut it down. He said it was too many people in there. Plus, he said he smelled weed. And then, once the police came and they said, yeah, they smelled the weed and shit, and they seen all them black people, of course, they got on their racist shit. They shut the party down, so now people mad, they born and shit. And then people in the audience started chanting the Ludacris song, move, bitch, get out the way and shit. So we like, fuck, so that's when me, Platinum Flame, and the crew, we started making our way out. And then, Sexy Trapper, was like, yo, she was like, yeah, about to leave. I'm like, yeah, she was like, I'm about to leave too. So she got, the security dude's number and bounced. So, Sexy Trapper with us. So we leave, you know what I mean? 88, you know what I mean? And her crew, I guess they went to go chill with Big Boogie and Finesse. And Rainwater was there too, because Rain was with Finesse. She went to go chill with them. Sexy Trapper was like, she gonna, roll with us and then see if she could get with the security dude later on, you know what I mean? Because Sexy Trapper like one of the fellas, so we like, cool. Mac Truck never showed up because, I texted him and shit. He never, answered my text or call, and I done forgot about once I seen all that ass and titties in this spot. I forgot about it, so we like, yo, we chill for the rest of the night, walk the strip, you know what I mean? Bag numbers and all that. The next day, Lil Wayne was having like a show outside. It was gonna be like some Woodstock shit to where all the bikers gonna come down. And Wayne was giving a show outside. There's gonna be mad people at the Lil Wayne show. So we all agreed, fuck it. We gonna chill for the rest of the night. And the rest of the day, we all just go down to where Lil Wayne is gonna be at. And Lil Wayne is gonna have a show. You know what I mean? So boom. So now, it's the next day, you know what I mean? It's like a daytime show starting around, I want to say 4 o'clock, and it's going to go to maybe 10 or 11. So it's kind of set up like Woodstock, you know what I mean? To where, I guess y'all could just look up footage from Woodstock in the 60s or whatever. So we get out there, so now we got our bikes, me, Platinum Flame, we all got our bikes. Mac Truck and Certified Gorillas, they got with us, they got their bikes. So, Becky's busy, so Becky's, she's running around because ASAP's gonna perform at the Lil Wayne show, and so is Gorilla, so Becky was super busy, which I was kind of glad, because, I could flirt with more bitches. So, 88, she gets on the back of, Platinum's bike. Sexy Trapper gets on the back of Flame bike, and it's just me, so I'm, so I ride, you know what I mean? So, we all ride down with our motorcycles, we get there. Of course, we see all the different bike crews and shit like that. And, we get there, you know what I mean? Like I said, the Rough Riders is there. Southside Soldiers was there, the Redliners, you know what I mean? Whole bunch of motorcycle crews, Mexican, motorcycle clubs, black club, you know what I mean? Everybody just down there, so we get there. Now we chillin', we find a spot. We park up, you know what I mean? So me, Mac Truck, his crew, my crew, we chillin'. And they had this big jumbo screen outside, like this big ass screen outside. And they was playing like a song about, for the dead homies and shit. So one by one, they were showing different pictures of people like King Von, Pop Smoke, you know what I mean, Nipsey Hussle, you know what I mean, Takeoff, just different people. So of course all the motorcycle niggas, they revving the engine, they revving it, boom, 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 everybody revving the engine, boom, boom, and it's getting louder and louder. You know what I mean? They showed Tupac, people started going crazy, they revving the engine, leave it loud, cause Tupac, cause they showed Tupac sitting on a motorcycle with the leather vest on. And then the last picture they showed was DMX and Aaliyah together, and that's when everybody went crazy. Everybody revving the engine, rum, or you hear people blowing the horn, blowing the horn and shit, like crazy. Everybody just, pressing the gas when they bikes, even me, you know what I mean? And they just left the picture of DMX and Aaliyah, you know what I mean, hugging up there. So boom. So now the show starts. Boom, Lil Wayne comes out. He's performing Fireman, you know what I mean? So, Lil Wayne performed a bunch of records. So he brings out his first guest. Bossman D-Lo come out. He performed, different songs. Bossman D-Lo, boom. So now he brings out Megan Thee Stallion. Megan Thee Stallion's performing. Boom, 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 boom. Lil Wayne, he's still performing some of his records. Lil Wayne going in. He brings out, Joel Santana come out. You know what I mean? Jim Jones come out. Boom. So it's like a good show. So Rick Ross, of course, hit the stage, you know what I mean? Meek Mill hit the stage, you know what I mean? So it's getting lit, you know what I mean? So it's like it was daytime. Now the sun's down, now it's dark outside. So, people still revving their engines throughout the show, but you can still hear the music loud. My cousin Boosie, he's filming everything. So me and Mac Truck, we chillin', you know what I mean, at the show and shit. The Spanish girl that we seen from like a day and a half, or the day before yesterday came up, it was like, yo, I was looking for y'all. She was like, yo, that picture that I took with y'all, my boyfriend's really freaking out about it. She was like, is there any way you could take it down? Cause, her boyfriend's seen it, you know what I mean? So, so she was asking us, can we take it down? So she was like, yeah, cause her boyfriend's, really, been, bugging out about it, whatever. So the back of my head, I'm like, oh, I already know what this is. He's tripping because she took a picture with some black niggas, you know what I mean? I know how, Spanish people are, even though people talk that black and brown shit, Spanish people ain't no different than white people. Like, the motherfuckers are just as racist. So I'm like, yeah. So I privated the picture. I ain't deleted. I privated. So then Mac Truck, he did the same thing. He privated. So she was like, oh, thank you, da-da-da-da-da. So she goes back over to where the rest of her people is, the Mexican motherfuckers or whatever. And, and they had on leather vests. I forgot what was the name of their club. So, but the boyfriend's still tripping. He's still tripping and arguing about the picture and her taking the picture with us. But my cousin's over there, he's filming, but he can hear them talking. Even though they talking in Spanish, they said he heard the word nigga. So my cousin comes over, he said, yo, that girl, that y'all took the picture with, she's over there, her boyfriend's still tripping. He yelling at her in Spanish, but he said something about nigga or whatever. So we like, what? So that's when me, Mac Truck, and the whole crew, the certified gorillas and my niggas, Platinum Flame, and all of us, we go over and see what's up. So, when we get over there, the girl, she, her and the boyfriend arguing, so I'm like, yo, homie, what's good? Everything all right? So, he's still arguing with her in Spanish, and she was like, trying to tell us everything's fine. So I'm like, yeah, yo, it's not like that, and I'm like, yo, with all love, the picture was innocent, you know what I mean? We ain't trying to violate your relationship with your girl, you know what I mean? We just took a picture just having fun. It's Myrtle Beach Bike Week. I was like, it's all good, you know what I'm saying? So I held my hand up. So that's when the Spanish dude looked at my hand like it stunk. Then he looked at me in my eyes and said, He said, I don't want to shake hands with no nigga. Soon as he said that, my nigga Matt Truck swung a left hook. Boom, caught the nigga. Punched him in his face, the nigga dropped. Boom, he fell on his back with his arms spread out, you know what I mean? Knocked out cold. So now, we start fighting his crew. So me and his niggas start fighting, you know, the Spanish girl, she got knocked all out the way. So now Mac Truck is wildin', Mac Truck. He knocked out that one nigga now. Mac Truck hit another nigga, boom. His homie hit another, so now, you know, we all fighting. So now it's a melee, we fighting in the middle of the fucking, out in the middle of the field while Wayne is performing. Some of the people ain't even know a fight was going because the music is so loud. So we fighting. Fighting, tussling niggas around. So, in the midst of the melee, the nigga Slap Joe sees a nigga, a Spanish nigga, reaching for his waist. So Slap Joe like, oh shit, you know, Slap Joe, even though he's like a big nigga, like a Suge Knight type, he used to play football. So, you know, Slap Joe, he moving around this nigga, and right before the nigga could pull the gun from his waist, Slap Joe tackles him, boom, he tackles him, and gets on top of him, takes the nigga gun. So right when Slap Joe takes the nigga gun, and was about to aim it at the nigga, you know what I mean, tell him don't move. That's when you hear the cops come through, was like, you know, stop. They start pepper spraying motherfuckers. The cops starts pepper spraying people. They grabbing niggas, they grab me, they grab Platinum, they grab Matt, they grab everybody. They, you know, make everybody cook. Now, at this point, the music stops. So now, they got us all face down and shit. You know what I mean? They got, you know, Slap Joe, he puts his hands up, he's still sitting on top of the guy. And then, you know, I could hear like some snoring, and it was the guy was still knocked out, you know, laid on his back. His whole right side of his face was swelled up like a football, like, you know, that's how I knew Mac Truck broke this nigga jaw. So they, you know, they arrested us, you know, took us out in handcuffs, you know what I mean? They arrested Slap Joe and shit. So we was locked up for a minute, probably for like, until like the next day, like the afternoon and shit. And they all just started letting us go and shit, and you know what I mean? And after that, we chilled, you know, probably for like, you know, another day, and then we left, head back to Texas. Max Truck went back to the West Coast. And yeah, that was just a crazy time. You know, when we went down,